Gender equality is more than a goal in itself. It is a precondition for meeting the challenge of reducing poverty, promoting sustainable development, and building a good governance. A quote by Kofi Annan. A very good evening to all of you. It gives me an immense pleasure in welcoming all of you to this session dedicated to the eminent women in the field of chemistry at the 51st annual sessions of Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon. Now, I most cordially invite Professor Priyani Paranagama, Chair of Chemistry, University of Kelaniya, Director of Institute of Indigenous Medicine, University of Colombo, and the Chairperson, Women Chemists Committee to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you very much. Good evening. President of the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, all the plenary speakers, members of the Women Chemists Committee, members of the Council, and members of the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure and an honor to deliver the welcome speech in this webinar of Women Chemists Committee. This is one of the events organized in 51st annual session and 81st anniversary celebrations. I'm very happy to announce the President of Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, this year, 2021-2022, is an eminent lady chemist, Professor Sri Lankan, and she gave her fullest support to get the due recognition for women chemists in Sri Lanka as other countries. The Women Chemists Committee of Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon was established in 2019, and we call it WCC, that includes a group of veteran chemists produced by various state-of-the-art universities and institutes in Sri Lanka and abroad, who are well qualified and experienced in the chemistry world. The lady professionals working in WCC are great contributors in the field of chemistry as academics, researchers, and industrialists. So WCC is looking forward to build up international relations with similar bodies like IUPAC, Commonwealth Chemistry, Royal Society of Chemistry, and enhance the knowledge and exposure in the world of chemistry. Our role model and godmother is Marie Curie, the only lady who secured Nobel Prize twice in year 1903 and 1911, being the first lady scientist to win such award, and also the first person to win the second Nobel Prize. As the chairperson of the WCC, I want to focus on empowering women chemists and the active participation by lady chemists in the field of harmless chemistry. Hence, one of the objectives of WCC is to enhance leadership and career development opportunities of women chemists. Through the future programs, WCC also plan to offer many avenues to develop career opportunities and draw attention to attract eminent chemists who has done eminent work for the field of chemistry. WCC work to, and also WCC seek to support lady chemists in our community and encourage young chemists to pursue careers in the chemistry. And this will be a common platform for women chemists to enhance the entrepreneurship development too. WCC strongly emphasized on involvement of the young lady chemists from our local state and non-state universities, research institutes, and industries. Therefore, WCC of Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, we plan to organize programs like webinars, skill development programs, technical programs to encourage individual women chemists to share their stories and also promote the oneself at work. This year we have planned 2 such webinars and activities, like we organize a essay competition, photographic competition that encourage our young chemists to participate these events and info and also they promote themselves. So WCC is planning to organize symposia in national and international level too, in order to present their research and innovations. So therefore, this will help to attract, promote, and fostering women chemists to positively impact diversity, equity, and inclusion in the society, the profession. So the participating in WCC offers women chemists an opportunity to network and advocate for themselves. Being part of WCC means that you are representing women in chemistry and that you are someone who strives to achieve equity and recognition for all. Yet, with all these opportunities, inequity is still present in our society. Further, WCC should help all women chemists to develop a confident and forceful voice to advocate for equal social and professional positions in the world. When organized activities, WCC give priority for programs that help to uplift the economy of the country. The country needs individuals who are passionate about chemistry. What can you do with the chemistry degree? The broad science education obtained through the chemistry degree will help to improve the analytical thinking, creative ideas, and research methods, which help to obtain and also which help to obtain and create novel ideas and also develop other soft skills too. Hence, WCC will commence programs for female school children, undergraduates, graduate students, and also mid-career scientists to empower them continue their chosen career paths. So the theme of the today's webinar is Achieving Gender Equity of Women, Challenges and Opportunities. Today we have identified 3 eminent chemists, 2 from abroad, USA and UK, and 1 from Sri Lanka. I would like to welcome all our plenary speakers, though they couldn't physically attend the conference due to many, the economic crisis, and also they joined through the online to this webinar. Let me first welcome Professor Mettika Vitanage from University of Sri Javadanapura. She is an eminent chemist and she has carried out many research in chemistry, and her publications were globally recognized and her name was among the list of candidates who received highest citation globally. Therefore, it's a great privilege and honor for me to welcome Professor Mettika to this webinar today. On behalf of the organizing committee of WCC, I greatly welcome you to this seminar, and also I'm very grateful to you for kindly accepting our invitation to deliver the plenary speech. And our second speaker, Dr. Jessica Pereira, is a research fellow in organic material for energy generation and storage, the GSK Carbon Natural Laboratories for Sustainable Chemistry, School of Chemistry, University of Nottingham, UK. So we are very proud of you as one of the students from Institute of Chemistry. Today you are participating in this webinar. Your participation is a profound impact for this conference. We are delighted to hear about you and how you improve your academic career, as many of the Institute of Chemistry students are waiting and to listen to your speech today. And I warmly welcome Dr. Pavitra Patiratna, Assistant Professor, Biomedical and Chemical Engineering and Sciences, Florida Institute of Technology, USA. It's a great privilege for me to welcome you, Pavitra, as one of my best undergraduate students. I'm also very proud of you. I'm immensely grateful to you as you agreed to participate lively to deliver your plenary address. You wanted to come and participate physically, but unfortunately, we have a lot of the difficulties to organize this event physically. But I welcome you, and also I'm grateful to you and joining this webinar today to share your experience with us. Ladies and gentlemen, an event of this nature cannot happen overnight, especially under these difficult circumstances. Therefore, I fail my duties if I don't mention the organizing committee, especially the secretary of the WCC, Dr. Dinusha Udukala. Her commitment and dedication to organize this event is greatly appreciated. And also the teaching assistant, Ms. Shalini, I also grateful to you for helping us to coordinate this event. I also especially thank to all the members of the other members of the organizing committee who helped in numerous ways to make this event a success, and also to identify resource person to organize this webinar. I'm sure you will have fruitful and rewarding exchanges during the webinar. I wish you every success with this important webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam. Now, I most cordially invite Professor Shriyanti Darniyagala, President, Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, to speak a few words.
Good afternoon to all of you. This is the 51st celebration of the 51st annual sessions and the 81st anniversary celebrations of the Institute of Chemistry. Yesterday, we inaugurated our annual sessions, and these next few days, we will continue with the events for these celebrations. Today in the morning, we had a theme seminar, which was very fruitful. And now this is another event from the Women's Chemists Committee. The Women's Chemists Committee has been very active this year. Those of you who were online or who came physically for the inauguration yesterday would have heard my presidential address, and I detailed all the activities done by the Women's Chemist Committee, starting from taking part in the Global Women's Breakfast to coincide with the IUPAC Global Breakfast. Then we had essay competition on women in chemistry. We had a photo abstract competition, and also the Women's Committee organized 2 inspirational talks. That's a lot for the season. So, and now to the annual sessions, this has become another event. Apart annual sessions also, celebrations have also given a slot to the Women's Chemist Committee to have an event which will benefit most of the women chemists in Sri Lanka. So I thank Professor Priyani Paranagama, the chairperson, Dr. Dinusha Udukala, the secretary, and all the others who put a tremendous effort into this Women's Chemist Committee activities this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. To introduce our first speaker of the plenary session, I would like to call upon Professor Shainika Padumadasa, Professor, Department of Chemistry, University of Sri Javadanapura.
Thank you. Mettika Vithanage is a professor in natural resources and the founding director at the Ecosphere Resilience Research Center, University of Sri Javadanapura. She was appointed as an adjunct professor in the University of Western Australia, Australia, and the University of Petroleum Engineering Studies, India. She obtained her bachelor's specializing in natural resources from Sabaragamuwa University, then the master's in environmental studies from University of Peradeniya, and the doctoral degree from the University of Copenhagen, Denmark. The area of research for the doctoral degree was hydrogeology and groundwater modeling. Before joining University of Sri Javadanapura in 2017, she served as a senior research fellow at the National Institute of Fundamental Studies, Kandy. Professor Mettika Vithanage is a world-renowned scientist. She has contributed to more than 175 Science Citation Index journal publications, over 30 book chapters, and co-edited 4 books published by Elsevier. She has won many national and international accolades. She received the prestigious General Research Committee Award by the Sri Lanka Association for the Advancement of Science in 2019. She was awarded the Best Young Scientist in 2018 by the Young Scientist Forum of the National Science and Technology Commission, Sri Lanka. And in 2016, she became the Young Scientist in Chemistry by the National Science Foundation of Sri Lanka. She was selected as one of the early career women scientists by the Organization for Women Scientists in the Developing Countries, Italy. She has a very impressive curriculum vitae. I can go on reading to you about her very impressive research and her contribution to the general upliftment of science. So without taking more time, let me invite Professor Mettika Vithanage to address the audience.
Thank you very much, Professor Shanika Padamdasa, for your kind introduction. I take this opportunity to thank the WCC President, Secretariat, and of course, Professor Dharniyagala, the President of IChemC, for giving me this opportunity to give my plenary address today in this celebrations of your annual sessions. Hopefully you can see my slides. So I will be focusing on the gender equality for women in science, which is the theme of your theme of the WCC today, to discuss the challenges and opportunities. Gender equality requires equal enjoyment by women and men of socially valued good opportunities, resources, and rewards. We have been seeing, discussions regarding gender equality in various different forums. However, still the gender inequality is seen in schools, workplaces, wherever you are, neighborhoods, even in media, sports, and everywhere. So it has become a global challenge. So today we are going to talk about the globally challenged inequality wherever we are, to drive yourself beyond this inequality, to make yourself successful. At the same time, you can serve the country, to the community, and to the students by doing such. So there are many barriers to girls in education. Among those barriers, one is gender inequality. Other than that, we have experienced violence, we have experienced the effect of poverty, and the effect of long distance to school, even in Sri Lanka. So our focus today will be regarding gender inequality, gender equality, and what are the challenges and what are the opportunities, how to drive ourselves beyond this inequality. So we need to understand the benefits of gender equality, so that we will understand what we can gain having equal society without any issues or any discrimination due to the gender. So one benefit would be closing the gender workforce gap, which would create a greater opportunity or greater productivity and higher GDP, which will result of increased women's workforce participation. So in Sri Lanka, even in many South Asian countries, and in African continent, so a lot of women women are in at home as housewives, or they are not educated, they are being prohibited to get the education. Even nowadays, with this kind of technologically important society, technologically advanced society, we have these kind of issues still present in rural Sri Lanka. So evidence shows that more women leadership positions, more women in leadership positions gives better results and gives high profitability for organizations. So these have been proved. And we all know by experience, when women are leading organizations, societies, professional groups, there is a drive always, right? And there is, most of the time, there are no scams and no unethical behaviors much compared to, when men in leadership. So increasing women's economic security would reduce the demand and demand on government payroll and services, because women will be contributing towards more. So gender equality can help preventing violence against women. So that will be very important professionally as well as society wise, because it is very important in a society like in Sri Lanka. So these are some of the benefits of gender equality. So if we move discussing how women in science in the world, so you can clearly see, even in the world, the researchers are less, women researchers are less than the men. So it's about 30% of all researchers in science are women. If we divide this 30% into the continent-wise or into region-wise, South and West Asia has only about 15%. Majority women, most importantly and interestingly, are in Latin America. So South America has more women scientists than any other parts of the world. Even in North America and Western Europe, you have about 25%. Sub-Saharan Africa, less than North America and Latin America, but they are much more beyond South and West Asia. So West Asia, South Asia, we have very limited women scientists, so that we need to empower women, we need to encourage women to work on science or STEM culture. So the division between genders within science persists in all countries, that is being seen. And female researchers have been increasing in number, but fewer in academic publications on average compared to men, and less likely to collaborate internationally. That is one big disadvantage, or one big step behind that we have as women in science. Europe, North America has a higher possibility for men to graduate from various scientific disciplines than women. And globally, only 3% of science-based Nobel Prizes have been awarded for women. And only 11% of senior researcher roles are held by women. So we need to be more empowered and more strengthened. So this image, or this map, shows the global overview of women's participation in science. Unfortunately, data are not available for North America and Australia. I'm not sure why, but this map was from the UIS publication on women in science. But you can see Sri Lanka clearly, that they are showing that we are women in Sri Lanka, like 40 to 45% to 55% women are in science. but it is not really a true number. We can move forward, and then we can know why it is not true. So this is the status in Sri Lanka. If we discuss about the National Academy of Sciences, it's only, you can clearly see 2020 survey and 2015 survey. There have been an increase, a little bit of increase for the whole 5 years. Women members have been increased by 5 numbers, increased by 5 only. So I'm not sure whether these are correct, but these data are from the Global Women in Science database. So if we discuss about the researchers by different disciplines, male to female ratios, you can clearly see always women are behind apart from the medical sciences field. So medical sciences field, women are in much more beyond than men, but almost all the other sectors, we are behind. So researchers by educational qualifications, you can clearly see again, bachelor's or equivalent, women are topmost, but from the other, like bachelor's or PGD diploma holders or master's holders, MPhils, and doctoral or equivalent degrees, we are behind. That is because women have a lot more responsibilities, especially family responsibilities, so that after bachelor's, they are not having enthusiasm towards masters and beyond. If we discuss about the researchers regarding age and gender in Sri Lanka, these are data from Sri Lanka from National Science Foundation. So you can see that the researchers by age, 31 to 40 years of age, we are leading, and almost all other segments we are behind. So that means that is the again showing that sometimes we are in research scientist positions in various research institutes in academia, but then with the postgraduates we are not proceeding. Number of research students in universities in 2018, as an example, if we take PhD research students, we are about 450, where the males are about 650, so 200 behind. And MPhil, again, the same kind of 200 behind. So this is the current situation of women in science in Sri Lanka. These numbers have been shown not to discriminate, but to understand where we are as women in Sri Lankan science education. Although the situation is like that, there have been internationally recognized women researchers in Sri Lanka who are in chemistry, who are in chemical engineering, and many other fields as well, medicine and so on. So as an example, there have been consecutive award winners from OWSD, that means Organization for Women Scientists in Developing Countries, Elsevier Foundation Awards, which are being given every year for various different disciplines, have been received by Sri Lankan women scientists. In 2020 award has been gone for the Dr. Champika Ellavala. She is from Ruhuni University. She is working on engineering, innovation, and technology field of study. Whereas 2021 award was gone to Dr. Imalka Munavira. She's a chemist. She's now associated with University of Sri Javardhanapura, Department of Chemistry. She has been awarded the Elsevier OWSD Foundation Award in 2021. There were 3 women scientists among the top 2% of the world scientists list, which have been published by Stanford University. So myself, Professor Neelika Malivge, famous well-known character, is in field of medicine, and Dr. Anushka Rajapaksha, she is also a chemist, women chemist, are being listed in as top 2% scientists in from Sri Lanka for the top for the world. So at the same time, the most recent OWSD Elsevier Award went to Dr. Ashani Ranatunga. She's a chemical engineer in Moratoria University. So this was recently awarded. So you can clearly see there are various opportunities for women to have these kind of awards, international recognition. And I was awarded by the World Academy of Sciences as the Chemists Award. This was basically for my biochar research, and this award named as Al-Kharafi Award for chemistry. And there have been a young scientist, Hasini Jayatilaka. She was honored for breakthrough cancer research, and she's in the US. So there are various women scientists in Sri Lanka who have been internationally recognized, and they are performing well, taking the name of Sri Lanka to the world. So what are the challenges that we are facing as women when we are carrying out STEM education or science or research in our professional life? Family obligations, child caring, so these kind of obligations are there. And there are sexual harassments, bullying, and many various these kind of challenges that we are facing. And there are workplace related stress. Hierarchy is one another issue. So there are hierarchical system that we are facing. Lack of recognition, it is very common for Sri Lanka, common in Sri Lanka for women scientists. Very limited acceptance and respect. And then work beyond standard working hours are very difficult, especially including night shifts. And time management also very difficult, but if you are very good in managing your time, that will be very helpful for you to proceed with your professional life. And there are many various other challenges for women in science. And how do we cope with these challenges? What are the coping strategies? Especially you need to have self-confidence, hard work, and dedication. That is one big coping strategy for you to cope up with all these challenges that are coming for you as a woman who are working in science. And there are supportive work environment. You can build supportive work environment with colleagues that you have. And if you are very friendly in nature, the work environment can be supportive. Awareness and education is very important. What WCC is now doing is that awareness and education, what are the challenges that we are facing, how do we get rid of these challenges, and so on. And then professional support, recreation and relaxation is very important. Professional support, you can have a mentor, you can go talk to a mentor to get some advice when you are facing some challenges. That will also be very helpful for you to cope up with challenges. And then balancing work and family time is important as same as recreation and relaxation, so that it will give you a different feeling, and it will help you to reduce the stress from the workload. And planning and prioritizing, time management, these two are very important for you to, when you become a good scientist or when you become a good researcher, because without planning, without prioritizing, without a good time management, you can't cope up with the workload that you have at home, personal life as well as professional life. Women especially are multitasking. When you compare yourself with a man or a boy, you can clearly see that women or girls, they are multitasking. They can handle many things at once. So that is another coping strategy that you can use it for your development or your career development. So there are so many opportunities for women who are in the field of science. So I have listed a few opportunities here. There are various fellowship programs, various scholarship programs, which are specifically targeted for women. So they are, the examples are given as like GWIS fellowship program, and Tech Makers Scholars Program, and many more. One most important one is the OWSD Early Career Fellowship. That is very important, and many Sri Lankans have got this fellowship. So there are two different fellowships here in OWSD. OWSD means Organization for Women Scientists in Developing Countries. Here, Sri Lanka, we have a national chapter of OWSD, and that can be useful for you to have PhD scholarships as well as fellowships for you as grants for your research. So they actually give you like $50,000 US. The grant is $50,000 US, the fellowship grant, which is very useful for you to carry out a good kind of a research by yourself. And there are many other scholarships and fellowships which are for women specifically. So these are the list of those. And there are like UNESCO or L'Oreal fellowships for women in science, and early career women scientist fellowships and PhD positions. The World Academy of Sciences are giving PhD positions, fellowships, and many more. So there are various opportunities for us if we can drive ourselves to catch these or grab these scholarships and fellowships. So there are various different ways to support women in science. You need to have women-friendly management policies. People need to listen to women, just to understand what they are doing and how they are doing, what are the difficulties that they are facing. We need to promote women scientists and their work at our workplaces. And we need to nominate women for awards and leadership positions. And we need to give them flexible work timing, work hours, so that they can perform much more than expected. So these kind of different ways are there to support women in science that are very helpful. So we can stop various different harassments issues that have been for women during, in our workplaces and even at our houses, the domestic issues. And we need to encourage their participation. We need to improve collaborations with female researchers so that, and we can have more publications with them. So encouragement is very important, and we need to promote, just like WCC does, we need to promote women scientists, especially women chemists, and we need to give them a chance to come serve for various different aspects in chemistry. There are various different like inorganic, organic, environmental, and many more. So various different segments we can promote them to work, and then there should be public policies funding projects for women, and that can be led by women too. So these kind of inspirations we need to give as a country to improve or empower women scientists in Sri Lanka. So I will give you some examples from myself. When I was a school kid, I had to try discover myself, to understand what are my interests, what are the values that I have, what are the skills that I have, what are the personality preferences that I have, what are the strengths that I have. So the same way you can think about yourself as women, as a girl, as a woman, what kind of skills that you have, what kind of strengths that you have, and what are the careers that interest me, interest you. Either it is Professor Priyani Paranangama, Professor Dharaniyagala, or Professor Padumadasa, and there are many more women chemists. So what are the careers that you are interested in? And what are the majors that you want to explore, whether it is organic chemistry or whether it is environmental chemistry, and these kind of things you have to think now. I'm targeting the young crowd here. And then you have to have a pathway to success that will empower you, that will give you a chance to perform. In terms of me, what I did was I used the maximum use of time that I had. So I was trying to take whatever the time that I have to do various different activities, like writing newspaper articles, like enjoying having a hobby, like which is traveling for me. So there can be various different hobbies for others. So mentor support is very important. Even now I'm taking mentor support whenever I need, because that is you can't think, you can't take decisions all the time. Like you may be very strong, but whenever you are taking a decision, especially whenever you have a turning point in your life, you really need to get mentor support. In my case, I always stand for the truth, even now, even before, and I have proper planning all the time. I plan during my research. I plan whenever to write a proposal, whenever to write a manuscript, I have a plan. So that prevents poor performance. That will save your time. And there is no shortcuts to success, right? You need to go through hardships. Whenever you go through hardships, you will have yourself trained to take any challenge. And you need to recognize the team members, because everything we do, it's a teamwork, right? Even research, it is a teamwork. Especially when you are handling a lab or when you are handling a research, there have been many people who are supporting, collaborating, supporting and granting financially, and many more. So you need to recognize those team members, and you should be responsible and be strong. Responsibility, taking responsibility and being accountable is very important, so that people get the trust towards you. And that way, if you can perform that way, then you can build a story, you can be a legend. And you need to be different from the crowd so that you will be unique and you will be you. So this is the advice that I can give you as a women scientist, even as a young scientist, for young scientists like you, for you to awake and activate yourself, because you are the future. So we can go explore the world. Everybody of you, every girl, every woman can go explore the world. That is the most important thing in our life. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Methika Vitanage. That was an enlightening speech. To introduce the next speaker, I cordially invite Dr. Gopika Thiripuranadar, Head of Department of Chemistry, College of Chemical Sciences, Institute.
Thank you, Nishmita. Good afternoon, all of you. So it's my pleasure and privilege to introduce our own graduate, Dr. Jessica Pereira. She received her graduateship in chemistry qualification from the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon in 2013. She performed exceptionally well and was the first graduate chemist to top the batch consecutively in all 4 years, and won the Sherin Jayasuriya Gold Medal in 2013 for overall best performance in all 4 years, along with over 20 subject prizes. Since the completion of graduateship program in 2013, November, she was employed as a teaching assistant and at IChemC on a full-time basis. However, upon recruitment as a research scientist at the Sri Lanka Institute of Nanotechnology in May 2014, she continued her TA position on weekends. In 2015, she secured a Chancellor's International Scholarship from University of Warwick, UK, and began her PhD in October 2015. Her PhD was centralized on developing nanostructured copper electrodes for application in organic photovoltaics, or PV, and won the Royal Society of Chemistry Energy Sector PhD Thesis Award in 2019 for her PhD thesis titled Nanostructured Copper Window and Reflective Electrodes for Organic Photovoltaics. Following the submission of her thesis in March 2019, she was employed as a research assistant and was working on exploring commercialization opportunities for a metal patterning process developed in the group. As part of this project, she participated as an entrepreneurial lead on the Midlands Innovation to Commercialization of University Research Program represented University of Warwick. She attended several trade shows and customer meetings worldwide during the course of 3 months to conduct a market research, explore future prospects of the process, obtain feedback on further developments, and scale up. Dr. Pereira formally received her PhD in August 2019 and continued to work on the aforementioned project as a research fellow until the end of June 2020. Dr. Pereira is currently a research fellow in the Propulsion Future Beacon of Excellence, University of Nottingham, UK. Her current research projects are focused on developing clean and sustainable solutions for application in emerging technologies. Her research interests include nanomaterials, sustainable energy generation, flexible electronics, and photovoltaics. Dr. Pereira, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gopika. Let me first share my screen. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and also thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. So I think along with the theme for today, I will speak to you about gender equality for sustainable development. Some of this is basics, and some of this is my ideas and my perspectives as an early career researcher in the field of science. So actually, before we move on to talk about sustainable development, I think it's good to just touch on the basics of gender equality, especially the meanings, because there can be some misconceptions or some misinformation in this regard. So as touched in the previous talk, gender equality is basically dealing with the fact that women and men, girls and boys have the same rights, resources and opportunities. That is, that is saying that we are not discriminated based on our gender, and that we have the ability and the capability to experience equal responsibilities, capabilities, and access to power or knowledge, whether we are born as a girl or a boy. So over the years, there have been some misconceptions with this in this context, especially believing that men are equal to women is gender equality. It's not the same. Men and women are different. That's why there are two different genders. But here, what we mean is we want the same rights and the responsibilities and the access, similar access, so that we can perform on a similar or equally laid playground. Also, along with that, because in the present world context, it is true that women are the minority and women are under discrimination. Therefore, there is a lot of feminism which is geared towards achieving gender equality. But feminism is an advocacy for women's rights, and it may contribute to gender equality, but feminism is not gender equality, because gender equality is an advocacy for men and women both. And also there's a popular misconception, because gender equality is contextualized as a women's issue, because again, it's linked to the previous point where women are discriminated and the minority is women. So therefore, there are a lot of women driving gender equality. But in reality, if we are to achieve gender equality, we need both contribution for men and women. So it's not just a women's issue. So there are several factors that affect the way we see gender equality. So the way I see it can be different from the way another person views it, even if we are both women. So some of these factors are listed here. I think country plays an important role. So this is, what is the development stage of the country? What is the financial situation of the country? And what type of importance does this country give to things like gender equality and diversity inclusion? So there are some statistics showing more gender equal countries and less gender equal countries. So these statistics are based on what are known as gender equality indices or several types of indexing mechanisms, which I will touch on the next slide. But I think for countries like Sri Lanka, the most prominent characteristics that would affect the way we look at gender equality would be the socioeconomic situation, the traditional, cultural, and the religious views. Especially in South Asian countries, there is a stereotyping involving men and women. So these are feminine attributes, these are masculine attributes, or these are feminine jobs and these are masculine jobs. So this is really wrong, and this type of it depends from a background. So it's possible that one can believe in this and believe this to be correct. So that has a perception on gender equality. Apart from that, your personal views. So it can be your personal views. It can be sometimes your family background, what your parents think about, what your siblings think about. Then it could be your colleagues in your workplace, your seniors. So these type of people can influence your views, and also your personal experience in the point of have you been exposed to gender discrimination, or do you think it's important, and why, or those kind of things can actually affect the way you look at it and how important you grade gender equality. Information and misinformation is another important thing. So sometimes we feel we know, but we actually might have the wrong information, and this wrong information might steer us in the wrong direction. So have you looked at this kind of the basics? Then these are some of the progress women have made compared to the 1990s. I say progress, but the numbers are very, very low. I know it's very small increments, especially considering the 1990s, and we are in 2022 now. But even the small improvements must be celebrated. So that's why I've put down these statistics down here. Most of the statistics here are centered around the workplace, because my talk today is mostly concerning a working woman. So there have been improvements in education and literacy rates, which are important because this kind of paves the way for a woman to find what she's interested in and subsequently find suitable modes of employment. And also senior management is kind of interesting, because if you look at the numbers in 1998, there was only one female CEO, but now there are 41. I know 41 is not a big improvement, but yet it's way better than one. And the representation of women in media and politics have also improved. So this is very important, although the numbers are small. This is because then women get a chance to voice their opinions, voice their problems, and hopefully to find solutions. So we need to keep fighting for gender equality, especially in the context of women. So like I said early on, there are different grading systems, especially based on gender-related indices. So these indices can take into account several factors, and over the years, global organizations like the UN have put down different types of indices. For example, if we go the list, Gender Development Index and Gender Empowerment Measure, which is commonly known as GEM, takes into account the overall picture. So it takes into account life expectancy, education, literacy, income, rights, access to power, and also the economic political situation of that community, society, or nation. But some other gender indices, let's say like Global Gender Gap Index, is more concentrated or constricted on a certain point, which is the gender gap. So gender gap is where women, say for example, a woman and a man are on the same scale. So they are on the same seniority level, they have the same qualifications, they have the same skill set, and they are able to do their tasks as expected, and they work the same number of hours per day or per month, but they are paid differently. So this is the gender gap. So why pay more for a man and pay less for a woman? So this is a gender gap, and ideally there shouldn't be a gender gap. And these results are actually put down on a country basis. So it's published in terms of how the country is doing with respect to other countries. So this data kind of helps you to evaluate the position of your country over the years, and also evaluate the position of your country with respect to other countries. And another important index is the Gender Parity Index, or the GPI, which takes into account the change or the difference in access to education for males and females. So I think you get the picture. The point is these indices help to understand where a community or society or a nation stands globally, and it may take several factors into account, or it may take a single factor into account. But the most important thing is the criteria that are considered are the quality of life or the well-being, then health, knowledge, work, finance, and access to power. So I think having looked at some of the basics and also how these things are measured, it's timely to look at the challenges. Again, these are some basic challenges I have put forward. There are many more challenges, but these challenges are focused on a working woman. Like I said, this could be someone like a young graduate or an early career researcher like myself, or very senior professors and lecturers, that is from a STEM point of view, or it could be someone maybe like a businesswoman in an industry or a company setup. So I think the most basic and the most obvious challenge is the work-home imbalance, and there are several aspects to this. The first being the obvious, where let's say, okay, so a woman has a job and she goes to work, she has a task to do there. Say it's an 8 to 5 job, she comes home at 5 o'clock, and there are still some tasks to be completed at home, especially like childcare support. So her day is way longer and her day never ends, and she has to go back to work the following day. So you can imagine the level of well-being, the possibility to have a relaxing time, and the stress levels are kind of also very high. So it's not an equal playground. And the other work-home imbalance measure comes again with care responsibilities. This is in most cases, it could be related to childcare again, or it could be having, for instance, elderly parents or sick, someone sick in your home. So sometimes this is a kind of like a decision, it's something to do with decision making. So let's say you're a woman and you're in a position where you can achieve a seniority, but this would require you to take more responsibilities at your workplace, which means sometimes you might think, and there's a conflict of interest in your head thinking, okay, if I take this job or if I take these more responsibilities, will I be able to do those responsibilities that are waiting for me at home? There's an emotional crisis here. So there's a chance that this type of work-home imbalance can give rise to what we say lack of opportunities for promotion, and also it might hinder career progression. Another point is it's called maternity discrimination. That is discrimination due to maternity. So maternity discrimination involves with someone who is pregnant or someone who has given birth quite recently. So sometimes this is a kind of related to perception again, how we look at things. Somebody might discriminate you or look at you in a negative point of view because of your maternity. And this can give rise to not getting deserving positions or promotions. And also this in turn relates to hindering career progression. Along with these are linked, some other factors include unfavorable recruitment strategies. So this is unconscious bias. So this is again linked with the traditional views or cultural views. For example, you're at an interview and there are male candidates and there are female candidates, and the interview board decides to give the job to the male candidate, not based on technical aspects, but based on their emotions or their stereotyping. This could be them thinking that males can work longer hours, or males work harder or less emotional or less responsibilities at home. This has nothing to do with the work portfolio, but everything to do with just being a woman. So discrimination based on being a woman. That is unconscious bias, and unfavorable recruitment strategies again lead to hindering career paths, and also deserving positions are not got just because of being a woman. Alongside, especially in countries like Sri Lanka, there is a lot of stereotyping. Sri Lanka and also, I would say, South Asian countries, where there is occupational segregation. That is defining certain jobs as being masculine or suitable for males, and other jobs being feminine or suitable for females. So this type of excludes you from getting into areas or jobs that are considered to be masculine. This is all wrong, and it also kind of undermines opportunities that we can obtain if this was non-existent. A popular example in the sciences would be engineering. If you look at the numbers, there are more males in engineering than females. So this, for an example, if I'm in a position to decide what I want to do, and if I want to do a job in, or if I want to pursue a career in engineering, I might think to myself, just because there are less women, I might take a step back and do something else which is not of interest. So that kind of is related to occupational segregation and related challenges in that area. And unequal pay is again the gender pay gap scenario, which I explained earlier. So the same jobs, but we are paid differently, which is very unfair. And it's actually just a cost to the economy. So that's a big problem as well. And of course, like Professor Mepika touched in the previous talk, sponsorship and mentoring is really, really important. For example, if you think of a scenario where a woman goes on maternity leave and she takes a career break, say from 6 to 10 months, and comes back, lots of things have changed. And in that type of scenario, you need someone to listen to you and to share, and to also kind of improve your confidence in that situation. So mentoring is very, very important, independent of which career you are, which career state you're in. You may be very young or very senior, but I think mentoring and sponsorship, especially from senior members, plays an important role. So these are some of the challenges I see, and these are some of the solutions I think we can make to make a positive change. So I think women should be involved in the policymaking and the decision-making arena. So women representation is important, because it could be a workforce, it could be a nation, it could be a society. Whatever the rules or policies set by should be abided by both genders. So why not involve both genders in the decision-making? That is essential. And second, I think most companies and institutions all over the world provide maternity leave. If they don't, they really need to. And alongside goes paternity leave as well. So this kind of generates, so this I think would give men an opportunity to appreciate maternity leave, and that would kind of reduce the maternity discrimination related challenges. So, and also from a more human point of view, it would give both the mother and the father an opportunity to be involved with the birth of the child, which is, I think, a very important milestone in their lives. And therefore, shared parental leave is encouraged. And also in a scenario where somebody takes a career break or goes on maternity leave, I think flexible working hours or remote working should be available, especially for someone who is involved in childcare support. This kind of helps them to do those tasks that are at home and also keep in touch with their job, which is very important because it helps to kind of get them off their routine work. And also keeping in touch is important because nowadays everything changes so drastically. We are in a digitally connected world and technology is increasing so fast. So even now, I don't think 5 years ago, we would, the use of Teams, Zoom is quite less. Now it's very excessive. Everybody knows it. So if you are not in touch, you will lose that capacity. So flexible working hours helps to maintain the workforce as well. And childcare support, I think some institutions, it might be quite easy to support this. For instance, in the European countries, universities will have childcare support. So if you're working in the university, you can put your child in the university daycare. So you don't have to run between the home front and the work front. But it's a possibility or something we can think about, but not always easily possible for all countries and for all job types. And reducing the gender pay gap, or as a matter of fact, getting rid of it completely is very, very important. And one way you can do it is report the values, because if you report the values, it increases, that's like publishing the data and increasing the transparency. Then what happens is institutions and associations, they want to look good on paper and want to look good on the public profile and also for potential employees. This would kind of give them an incentive to make changes that would kind of gear reduction in gender pay gaps. And also you could use these published values not just as an incentive, but also to make serious decisions, evaluate the situations, and kind of help to make decisions and changes that would help to reduce gender pay gaps. Also, I think HR or human resource has a very big role to play because recruitment and job specification evaluations must be done very seriously. So you need to consider if the job specifications are according to gender equality concepts, meaning that the job specifications should be such that it is not biased towards one gender, so that all genders, if they have the proper qualifications and skills, could apply for that. And also recruitment policies can be improved. For instance, you could, in the recruitment panel, you could have representation from both men and women. So it's more fair and less biased. And also mentoring and senior management plays a pivotal role. So these people should be provided with the proper training. I think in European countries, apart from a normal training, they also get gender equality training, diversity inclusion training, which are really important. So this helps them to lead by example, and also setting a clear-cut policy segment or clear-cut policies helps to kind of reduce discrimination, so that if you see some discrimination or harassment, the policy should be strictly followed, and a zero tolerance policy should be followed, so that it would lead by example and show other people that if you cause discrimination or harassment, this is the consequence you would have to face. Last but not least, I think educating the young generation is very important. This would help to get rid of the current stereotyping, and also both men and women to look at gender equality positively and not consider it as a women's issue. So next, moving on to sustainable development, I think gender equality is a very, very important property or important characteristic that we need to achieve to realize sustainable development. So sustainable development is developing or meeting the needs of the current society in the present world without compromising those of the future. So because this sustainable development is important for a society, for a nation, and for the world as a whole, the United Nations has recognized 17 goals for sustainable development, of which gender equality is number 5. So it is on the list because it is important. So therefore, we can't do sustainable development without achieving gender equality. So why do I say this? So sustainable development comes in 3 categories. It could be an environmental point of development, or a people point of development, or more or less an economic development. So I feel that gender equality would contribute more to people developments and economic development. So I say this because, say, considering the challenges, if those challenges were solved, what would the situation be? Let's think about that. So let's say if there was less work-home imbalance, and if there was really good balance between work life and home life, then at home people will be happy. At home, the mother and father will be happy. There'll be a good family relationship. So happy home is greater well-being and less stress and more mental stability. And the same, it would generate happy people at work, so healthier workforce, and always a healthier workforce will work efficiently. So that kind of balances the work and the home front. And also, I think it's very important if both women and men are provided equal opportunities for education, for instance, that would create a more knowledgeable society. And then women will be able to pick what type of position or who they want to be in the world, and gear their goals towards achieving this. So this would reduce unemployment, and that in turn would reduce poverty. So therefore, there is a great economic development simply by providing equal access to education. Similarly, if gender pay gaps are removed, or there are no gender pay gaps, this contributes to economic growth. Why? Because we're just doing the same jobs, but we are paid more. We are paid more so that we equalize what's paid for the opposite gender. So that brings about economic growth. And I think inclusion is also gender, or diversity inclusion is also a very important property, because as even as human beings, we are very, very different. And as men and women, we think differently. This generates a higher degree of innovation, creativity, and productivity, which in turn kind of contributes to entrepreneurship, which is essential for growth and sustainable development, because we don't want everyone to think alike. There won't be innovation in that way. And from a more safety and protection point of view, if normally gender equal societies are able to respect the other gender, so this creates kind of peace and harmony and less antisocial behavior, generating safer environments and communities feel more protected. This also gives them a chance to voice their opinions, and they will feel safe and not worry about, oh, what would happen if I say this, or what would happen if I say that. That kind of scenario would not be there. You would feel free to voice your opinions, and then hopefully take some actions to reduce those conflicts. And I think medical treatment, access to medicine, is another important parameter in gender equality, because women and men have different needs and different health needs, and these should be met. And this obviously it saves lives. That is the most important point. And also it helps to create a more hygiene and healthy environment, which is essential. I think all of these factors put together will encourage peace and harmony, which is essential. So why not talk about gender equality? Because it gives so many benefits, not just to women, but to men and women and the world as a whole. So that kind of wraps up my presentation, and I would like to leave with a little bit of reflection. So I know that today we are fighting for gender equality because women are in the minority and women are feeling discriminated, which is correct. So we should not be discriminated based on our gender. We should have equal rights and opportunities and access to anything we need so that we can lead the life we want. And it's also true that some men and some boys are either unconsciously or consciously supporting this. So we should use their support to get the attention of the others and gear towards gender equality, because it's my personal view that while we fight as a community, while we fight with feminism, we also need to more or less involve men and women, because the world comprises of all genders, and gender equality cannot be met without involving men. So I think, I hope I gave you something to think about, some basic concepts, but I hope I have provided some thought-provoking ideas that would help you think. So you can take these factors into consideration and make some changes, maybe in your home, in your classroom, or in your working place, and kind of make your little contribution to gender equality. So with that, I will wrap up my presentation, and I will actually sincerely thank the Women's Chemists Committee of the Institute of Chemists Ceylon for giving me this opportunity. It's actually very proud, especially to be here, especially because I'm from IChemC myself and I hold it very high. And also I think it's timely to thank all the inspirational women who have inspired me in my career, and also all the men who have supported me in different stages of my life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jessica Pereira. Next, I would like to call upon Professor Suranga Wickramarachchi, Professor, Department of Chemistry, University of Kelaniya, to introduce the next speaker.
And thank you. It is actually a very happy and a proud moment for me to introduce my own student, Pavitra. Dr. Pavitra Patiratna is an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical and Chemical Engineering and Sciences at the Florida Institute of Technology. She performed her undergraduate studies at the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka, and her PhD with Parastu Hashimi in the Department of Chemistry at Wayne State University, USA. Her postdoctoral work was at the University of Pittsburgh with Shigeru Amemiya. Pavitra's interdisciplinary and translational research program centers on developing and optimizing electrochemical sensors for analyzing biologically and environmentally impactful metals and neurotransmitters with applications in point-of-care diagnostics. She aspires to be a female role model for her students. Some of her prestigious distinctions include Honor Citation for Teaching Service and Esther and Stanley Kirshner General Chemistry Teaching Award. Besides her scholarly and teaching activities, Dr. Pavitra has been serving as the secretary of the ACS Orlando section since 2020 and a reviewer and a co-editor of several journals. And it's over to you, Pavitra. So let me share my screen. Okay, a very good evening to all of you, and thank you very much for the nice introduction, Professor Suranga Wickramarachchi, and thank you, Professor Priyani Paranagama and Professor Suranga Wickramarachchi again for inviting me to share a little bit of my journey of being a mom, a scientist, and an entrepreneur with the Women Chemist Society here. So before we talk about the challenges and the obstacles that I had throughout my journey, let me quickly take you through my educational background and who I am and what I'm doing currently. So I graduated with my bachelor's degree in chemistry from University of Kelaniya in 2009. Then I worked there for 2 years, the first year as a demonstrator and the next year as a temporary lecturer. During those 2 years, I had this great opportunity with working with Professor Priyani Paranagama and Professor Suranga Wickramarachchi with their ongoing organic projects. And I was extremely lucky to actually got even 5 publications before I flew to US in 2011. Thanks a lot again, both of you madams, for everything you've done so far. And then I started my PhD in 2011 at Wayne State University, Michigan in USA under the supervision of Dr. Parastu Hashimi. Again, she's a female chemist. I mean, she could be the best PI any PhD student could ever have. So then I graduated in 2016 spring. It was relatively a fast PhD. I spent only about 4.5 years with her. Then by the time I graduated, actually, she was due for her second baby, and our lab has moved to a different school in a different state. So she hired me as her postdoc. Again, something I forgot to mention, I was her first PhD student. So we didn't have any senior students. So I had to actually go there and, kind of take care of the lab while she's gone for the delivery.
So I spent 6 months with her there, and then I flew all the way back to University of Pittsburgh, where I actually did my real postdoc with Dr. Shigeru Amemiya at the University of Pittsburgh. There I stayed for 2.5 years, and then I landed my first independent career as an assistant professor in the Department of Biomedical and Chemical Engineering and Sciences Department at Florida Tech in 2019 August. I'm affiliated with the chemistry program. I'm the only female tenure track research faculty in the chemistry program. All my research active colleagues are male professors. And I have only one female faculty, but she's doing only teaching. So by profession, I'm an electrochemist, as Professor Suranga Maharashi mentioned. So we develop various electrochemical sensors. We are particularly interested about understanding the fate of heavy metals inside the body. So one of the projects focused on detecting different heavy metals in blood and urine. In terms of, our long-term goal is to use them as a POC, point of care devices, so that you can actually detect this metal toxicity at an early stage. And there's another project where we actually try to develop carbon fiber microelectrodes to understand the relationship between the heavy metals and neurotoxicity. Eventually, those electrodes will go into the brain. And I'm an analytical chemist, of course. So then we have some instrumentation-based projects. We do a lot of AFM studies, STM studies, SCM studies, and some of these projects are federal funded ones. And the two pictures that you see here were taken at 2 different time points. As you see, my research group is pretty large. Actually, I have one of the largest research groups in the whole school. As of now, I have 5 PhDs and 6 undergraduates. All my masters graduated last year. And at glance, you might see like I have more female students than male students. No gender bias, but it is what it is, right? These kids are actually not just a chemist. Some of them are chemical engineers. Some of them are physicists, mathematicians. It's a multi-faced research team. But then, journey up to this point wasn't a smooth one. Of course, like the other 2 speakers explained the basics and the fundamentals of, being a woman and how hard it is, like what obstacles that we have to do. So I thought I'm going to be just like sharing how I actually overcome some of those challenges by myself to land on a job like this today, assuming that it'll be helpful especially for the young crowd here. So when it comes to these challenges as a women chemist or a women scientist, right, the very first thing would be the pregnancy. And again, like here I listed some of the commonly, commonly found, I would say, like challenges that any women chemist or a women scientist may experience. But of course, myself, I didn't experience all of this. I went through some of these things, especially the ones I highlighted. So one of the biggest challenge for me was being pregnant and having 2 kids and taking care of these 2 while I was in the grad school and starting my career. So then if you think about the pregnancy, right, carrying a baby itself is it's a big thing, right? The ones who have gone through this process know how difficult it is, like regardless of your occupation. I had my eldest son during my 3rd year of grad school. Again, the pregnancy was super easy. Like I didn't have any of those, like the difficulties. And I was able to manage my efficiency throughout my grad program. So he was born in 2014 April, and then I published my 3rd paper in June of the same year. So nothing went down because of his delivery. But then the real challenge came after he's out, and like thinking about like how do we take care of him now? Because by then both of us, like my husband and I, were both schooling. He was doing his master's and I was doing my PhD. So we had my mom taking care of him every 6 months, but then
there was like another 6-month gap. Like we were just like lost. We were like, how do we do this, right? And just because we were students, we were not in a position to afford the child care facilities, like at least like to put him on a good daycare. We couldn't afford that. So again, I'm blessed with one of the, I mean, my husband is like very understanding, and then he stood up. He's just like, listen, like you continue and I'll give up, and then I'll be the home dad to take care of him. So that was our solution, especially when you're actually stuck in a country where you don't have the support from your family, right? I mean, you have friends, but you can't just like rely on them. So then he gave up his studies, and then although it was not the best decision at that point, but we didn't really actually have any other opportunities, options. So my PhD went smoothly, thanks for him. And then, like when you were a grad student, like you don't really, I mean, if you do your work right, and if you just like follow what your supervisor is asking you to do, right, and then you're not gonna like struggle with the time management. Like if someone is complaining about like, I don't know what to do, like I'm kind of like stuck with all these things, like I have to teach, like, then it's simply saying like something is wrong with that student, because you don't have that much to do when you're working under a PI. So time management wasn't an issue at that point for me. But my second pregnancy was completely different. So I got pregnant after I finished my postdoc, and in between my postdoc and my career, my independent career. So then it was totally different. I had to go through all these pregnancy related difficulties. I was like talking to myself, like, how do these people have like 10 kids, with all this problem, like this nausea and all this sickness stuff, motion sickness and stuff, whatever those sickness. But the good thing was like I wasn't doing anything related to any research or like being in lab during the first trimester, so it was an easy thing for me. But then I started my career in 2019 August, and I delivered the baby in the same year December. So the following January, the COVID hits. So that could be the worst that can happen to an assistant professor. Like you're trying to like manage your time between an infant and setting up a lab and the COVID. So with the COVID, so we had to shut down all our labs for like roughly about like 3 months, and our startup grants were frozen for like nearly about like 6 months. So like that was the time we were just about to start getting our instruments, like trying like the groundwork, but just because of all these things, unexpected things, so everything was actually pushed back like in months. I mean, I'm still recovering from that, I mean, although it was like a 1 year, like all research projects were just like pushed back a lot. I mean, I'm sure like the ones who are engaged in the research field here in Sri Lanka might have experienced the same thing. But then that was actually the time, sorry, that I realized managing the time is a thing, right? So when in the past, when my friends like complain about like, oh, I can't do this, right, and I was just like making fun out of them, saying like, what are you talking, like you have 24 hours, right? Why can't you just like manage your time? But when I actually got stuck with the COVID lab and setting up the lab and my kid, I was like, okay, this is a real thing. So then of course, like when you're actually experiencing the time management issues, like when you can't like finish up the things on time, so then you're going to lose the work-home balance. Like you're going to be stressed, like you'll be like, what am I supposed to be doing, right? So everything is going to be a mess. But I'll tell you in the next slide, I have like some of the coping strategies that I use to overcome this issue with the time management. The other common thing as women chemists or women scientists that we would face is the discrimination and harassment. Again, as of now, I haven't faced any gender discrimination, but I was actually harassed several times. But again, it's unfortunately again with the male supervisors. Again, no bias. I mean, there's nothing against them, but it's actually basically the way that they mentor their labs and the research groups were a little different than I was used to. And, so I remember like when I was an undergrad student, so my research supervisor,
he was a fantastic researcher. Like his ideas were great, and the research that I did was like very intense, right? But for some reason, like he couldn't control his temper. Like sometimes, like he was yelling at students, like which we didn't even know why he was yelling. And and then like he had this fear of like knowing his research. Like I mean, he didn't want to like publish any of his research, but I'll take a moment here again to thank Professor Priyani Panagama, Professor Suranga Vikramarachchi, and Dr. Kasumi Akalanka, and Dr. Sumudhu Mapa. These four amazing ladies were actually with me during that tough time. I used to go complain, and I'm just like, I don't know what should I be doing, right? And then they were like giving me advices, like, I don't know, you do this, and then, I mean, without these four, I wouldn't be surviving. I wouldn't be talking to you guys here today. Thanks again, all of you, for your help during that tough time. And then, I mean, at the end, I realized I just like had to accept the situation, right? I mean, we talk about the gender equality in 2020-22, but the question is like, do we actually have the gender equality, right? Or can we actually get rid of this harassment? Again, like I said, like I haven't faced any gender discrimination or any gender-based harassment. But again, like we talk about the equality, but then the question, I mean, but we don't have a solution for any of these things, right? The two things, I mean, we can keep fighting for these things, right? We can keep fighting against the PIs and say, like, you can't do this, like your mentoring style is different, like wrong, like you should be like treating your student like this. But the easiest way would be like, rather than trying to change someone else, like change yourself, right? And adjust to that situation and, like keep moving. That's what I actually learned from, especially I remember like when I complained about these things with Professor Priyani and Professor Ranga, that was like one of the most important advice that I got, like just let it go, right? And so then I faced the same kind of a similar situation during my postdoc. Again, he was one of the very famous electrochemists. I'm very thankful for him. I mean, like, personally, I have no problem with them. Like, I still talk to them, but like the workload and the stress and, like the way that they treated their students was like, like giving you this feeling like, oh, you're like harassed, like you were like harassed. So during my postdoc, I actually, I'm actually sharing this, especially not for the established women chemists, but for the younger generation. If you guys want to move up, like these are the people that you're going to meet in your future, in the future. So during my postdoc, I had to work for 60 hours per week, meaning we have to be in the lab for 6 days. So like, it's like 10 hours per day. But none of my experiments were just 10 hours. Those were like 12 to 14 hours of experiments, okay? So I had no complaint about that. I mean, even Professor Mathika mentioned, right? I mean, you can't complain. Like if you have to do something, you just have to do it, right? So then he had another role saying, like, let's say like whatever the amount of data that you collect from 8 a.m. to like, let's say like 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. in the night, we have to send him a report before we come the next day. So let's say like there were days like that I left the lab around like 12 o'clock in the night, and then like making this report up until like 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning. And then I go next day around like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then like this professor was like, I mean, he finished reading this report, and then like he's ready for me to like tell me like, okay, like here's what you should be doing. I don't even know whether he actually left the lab any day, like 24/7 he was there. But then, I was just like, okay, great. I mean, there were days like I actually didn't get a chance to see my son for like days, because, like in the morning when I left the lab, he was on the bed. And then when I come home, like he's again on the sleep, and then that was okay with me, and I was just like, okay, because I enjoy the research. I mean, I love the project. Like, I mean, then we were getting sometimes like we were getting really good data, but there were times like where we didn't actually get data. So then he got mad. And, sometimes like when he explained the experiments, like I knew that these are not going to work. So I would be like, I mean, this is going to fail. But then his answer was like, no, I don't care how intuitive you are. You just like have to show me like whether these experiments are going to fail or not. Okay. So then these experiments were actually very expensive. I mean, the amount of dollars that we spend on these experiments were like ridiculously high. Like we've been like spending like nearly like 1 or 2 grants per day. These are biology related experiments. So then when I have to like show my data saying like, okay, like, look, like this didn't work. And then he got mad. He was just like, because that was the moment that he realized, oh, like she told me this, but I didn't listen to her. Then he was like yelling at me, and he wasn't stopping there. And then he was like yelling at my boss, and and then like my boss's boss. It was like very stressful. And I mean, as I said, like just because I was a first PhD student for my research, my PhD advisor, my life with her was like very smooth, very fun. Like that 4.5 years might be one of the best timing in my life. So I enjoyed like being a PhD student. Like I had like almost zero stress in the grad school. But then, like moving from that environment to this environment was just like, I was totally lost. But again, I was very lucky to have my PI. She was always with me. I mean, she like, when I started like complaining about these things and I'm like, I don't know how to move. And then she would like talk to me every single day on phone, like saying, okay, like, are you okay? Like, do this. I had that strong support from the day one. And then, but again, that was a very tough time. And I think at some point I was even diagnosed with depression because I never knew what the depression was actually. I mean, there were days like I didn't want to go to the lab. Like I was just like crying when my husband was like dropping me off. I was just like, I don't want to go. And then he was just like, if you don't go in, like I'll come talk to him. And I was just like, no, I'll go in. I mean, that was my postdoc life. Okay. But again, I'm sharing this with you, especially with the young crowd, not to scare you, but to tell you like, I mean, these are the things, but then all these things actually teaches you something. Okay. And nothing bad, like, I mean, those experience actually showed my capacity. Like, I never knew that I was that capable to tolerate any of these things, and then the other things that I listed here, like the lack of recognition, acceptance, respect. I don't think I personally experienced any of these things, but these are the things that other women would tell you that they've experienced these things, lack of family professional support. Again, like I was very lucky to not to have that issue. The self-motivation, it's a must for you if you're going to be a women chemist or a women scientist, because like you're not going to get good data every single day, right? There may be like a week where you get the data, and then like months where you don't get anything, right? But then if you lose self-motivation at that point, like your career is going to stop, right? So when I actually had that tough time with my postdoc advisor, I used to go talk to another professor, one of my PhD advisor's very good friend. Here's the advice that he gave it to me. He was just like, if you let him stop you moving up, then you fail. Like don't let it happen. That's I mean, every single day, like I feel like I have a question, I get a problem. This is like what keeps me moving. He was like, you can't stop your life just because someone is just like harassing, like someone is just like doing bad things, right? You just have to keep moving forward. Again, like as Sri Lankans, I don't think we have any social or cultural traditional barriers, but some other nations do. One thing actually I forgot to mention when I was explaining about the pregnancy is, like let's say like if you are working with a project where you actually use the chemicals that are not good for the babies, right? So then your projects are going to be on hold, right? So that actually pushes your graduation date a few months or even like a few years back. For the same reason, sometimes like if we as PIs now like tell students in advance, like, listen, like these are the chemicals that we're going to be used. I know it's not nice, but we have to say this. We will be like, it would be great if you don't get pregnant during the PhD so that you can graduate within the time. But then if you think about like being a man, right, you don't have these issues, but this is all because we are women. Okay. And these are the things that you don't really have any solutions, right? So some of the coping strategies that I used, again, like Professor Methika shared the same kind of similar things with us. The very first thing, as she mentioned, like is build your self-confidence, right? If you're not confident enough, there's nowhere that you move up, right? Of course, hardworking. And again, as being Sri Lankans, like we are hard workers. I mean, that is why the other side of the country would love to hire us as GSAs or like, like the postdocs and all those things. And the dedication, like you just like have to dedicate yourself. Like when you're in the grad school, like your only ambition or like your objective should be to graduate, right? Not to do any other things, right? I mean, people, unfortunately, there is a new trend now that we see in Sri Lankan students, like when we actually hire them, we're kind of now, like a little bit, sometimes like we're not, like some, how do I say this? It's like, it's not like we don't want to hire, but we are very careful now when hiring Sri Lankan students because of some situations like, like the happening recently. I mean, most of the students tend to go to, like this cultural shows, like if you can sing, right, there are cultural events happening in the US. So then, but then at the same time, they completely forget their main reason or the main objective why they landed in the country. Like they keep like singing, dancing, doing all these things, and then like, failing classes and, those things are there. So the most important thing is like you just like have to keep in your mind, like you go for a reason and then you do that, like no matter what comes in your way. Okay. So when it comes to, I might be running out of the time, but I'll be quick. When it comes to time management, as I said, like I face this time management issue. So then one way to get rid of that would be to like be multitasking, like, so then how do you multitask, right? The easiest thing would be like you plan your day, you prioritize your work, right? And then like what should be done first, like what comes next, right? Then that'll actually gives you a clear picture. And then, but the thing is like, as you keep moving, this will be like a natural thing, like you'll get it, like, I mean, it comes in your blood then you don't have to like be stressed. When you actually manage your time, you're going to be, of course, balancing your work and family time. And then, as I mentioned earlier, like accepting the situation is one of the easiest way to move. They can harass, right? I mean, they can try to put barriers to stop us moving, like, but, I mean, who cares, right? That should be your thing. Like always try to be like optimistic, right? Never be pessimistic, right? Again, as I said, like I was very fortunate to have a very strong support from female professors. So again, very thankful for them. As I said, like if you feel like you're running out of the time, like one thing you could do is like reduce your social life. Like when you're in the grad school or when you're a postdoc, you can do these things, Then one thing that I'm pretty excited to share with you is like, you might be, now I said like I was actually struggling with the time management with the baby and setting up a lab. But as I move and then, like once I actually get used to this time management whole thing, I started up a small business recently. There's a fun story behind this actually. But again, this is to show you guys your bar should be like very high. I mean, there's no, I mean, just like always, like remove the boundaries, like, try to reach as much as you can. So my husband and I are taking care of the kids. So I go to work in the morning and he goes to work in the night. So I come home at 5 o'clock. So then from 5 p.m. onwards, like I get stuck with my kids. And then my little one, who is 2.5 years old, won't let me to like use laptop or do anything related to school. Like you could imagine like being an assistant professor can stop working at like 5 o'clock. That's not going to happen, right? So I got very stressed. I'm just like, oh, I have to write this research, I have to write this grant, right? But then this little one won't let me do anything. So, and then like as a stress relieving method, I started like cooking, try to engage myself with something that I can do while taking care of them. So because it's only 4 of us, like, of course, like we can't eat all of these foods that I've been like trying at home. So I started like sharing it with my neighbor. So they are US born, it's a US born family. And then they never, that was the first time that they started actually tasting our food. So then they were just like, oh, this is very, I mean, the taste is really good and it's very different from other foods that we've been, having. Why don't you just like start up a business? I was just like, no, lady, like, I don't even have time. I'm just like doing this for fun. But then she somehow wanted me to like start up a business and start selling the foods for the neighborhood. But again, like I was very lucky to have her as my neighbor. She's like my own sister, actually. When I said like I don't have time, so she did all the registration and everything was set up for me. All what I had to do is just like make food. So then we came up with this small home-based food business. So again, like here, I don't use any of the extra time to run this business. This is like I use my spare time or the time that I stay with the kids to make all these Sri Lankan authentic foods and then like sell out. Especially at farmers market. So, I mean, now the things have been changed, there was a time that I thought like, oh, I couldn't even do my job. Like I couldn't take care of my kids, right? But right now I'm actually doing all of these things. It's just, I mean, that's a life. I mean, I guess like you just like have to take whatever comes in your way, right? And be optimistic and always believe in yourself and like always think like as women, like we have this endless courage and the strength given by the mother nature. So we can easily break the glass ceiling. So with that, actually, I would like to stop my talk. And one thing I would actually, I wanted to say is, Professor Priyani Paranagama mentioned that you are in the process of actually expanding this WCC, right? And if you would like to establish any collaboration with the US professors, feel free to reach out to me. I can actually help you guys with that. We'll help you as much as we can. And with that, I would like to thank again for inviting me and giving me this great opportunity to share some of my experiences. And I hope I shared something that would be useful for you guys in the future. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take those now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pavitra Patiratna. Now, I cordially invite Dr. Dinusha Udukala, Senior Lecturer, College of Chemical Sciences, Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, and the Secretary of Women Chemists Committee to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thanks, Nishmita. A very good evening to all gathered here today. On behalf of the Women Chemists Committee of the Institute of Chemistry, Ceylon, it is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks to those who have directly and indirectly contributed to the success of this webinar themed Achieving Gender Equality of Women, Challenges and Opportunities. At the outset, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to our guest speakers, Professor Mettika Vitanage, Dr. Jessica Pereira, and Dr. Pavitra Patiratna, for sparing their invaluable time to grace the occasion despite their busy schedule and providing the audience with such an informative session. A special thanks to Professor Priyani Paranagama, Chairperson of WCC, and the committee members for organizing the event, especially Dr. Gobika, Professor Shainika, and Professor Suranga for introducing the speakers. I would like to express my earnest appreciation to Ms. Nishmita Ramaraj for comparing the event, and a big thank you to Mr. Hasanta for the technical support in making the event a success. A special thanks goes to Ms. Shanali for her dedicated work related to all the WCC events. At last, but not the least, we would like to thank everyone who participated for this webinar, and we hope to see you with another. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nishmita.
Thank you, Madam. We have come to the end of the session dedicated to the Women Chemists Committee. Once again, we thank all the participants who joined us through Zoom. Stay safe and have a good evening.